Hello, welcome to the 5th episode of the Prime Podcast. I'm talking with the week in consumer electronics and technology news. And this week we'll be covering Apple's iPhone 5 when it could arrive, when the Surface RT will arrive, Samsung's possible Galaxy Tab 11.8, Google Fiber is heading to Kansas City, and a bunch of Apple iPhone and iPad prototypes that were released as part of the Apple versus Samsung lawsuit that's been happening this week. So, before I go into that, the tech news this week, I'm going to talk about the Prime, which is what you're listening to, and that's because it just launched this week officially. Of course, I've been doing these videos and updating the site for the past few months, or weeks actually, but the site's all finished now, at least version 1.0 is finished. We'll be continuously updating it. There's also a version history page at the bottom if you want to check out theprime.co. Scroll to the bottom. In the little menu thing at the bottom there is the Prime V 1.0.0 or whatever number it is at the time you're watching this. You can go ahead and click on that number and it'll be sent to a version history page, and we'll talk about what version we're on right now, what's new with it, what we've done in the past, and what we plan to do in the future. And that's part of our new site, which includes primarily content. That's what we're going to focus on. We'll include reviews, editorials, news, and videos like you're watching now, as well as live blogs. Most of our content will either be editorials, which are longer, more in-depth, and news stories, which kind of talk about the future, the background, and related topics. Well, the news is another thing we'll talk about a lot, and that's more just shorter updates, just kind of explaining what's going on. Videos are like what you're seeing now. We do a video like this, the podcast, every Saturday, and another gaming video where we play video games. We've been doing Minecraft lately, and that's another part of this video series. And probably about once a month we'll be publishing a review. We have the next 7 review as well as the Galaxy S3 review coming up soon. I'll probably be publishing one of those next week and the other one the following week after that. But we've also published reviews and live vlogs, some events like possibly that Samsung Galaxy Tab event, which I'll talk about in a little bit. I'll possibly be live blogging that event. And it's kind of like if you want the news right now and you want to see what's happening live, that's kind of what live blogs are for. Now into some features that the Prime has, and one of those features is simplicity. Our site's very simple. It doesn't have a ton of just useless things. It's really focused on what you need to navigate the site, and that's basically it. It's also very accessible. For example, our site, if you look at the header, you can click up, use like About, Forums, Reviews, Editorials, News, and Videos. You can hover over, for example, editorials and see the last 5 editorials. You click on them. So it's very accessible. You can see all the latest content without having to do a whole lot at all. You don't even have to click at all. You just kind of have to hover, and you can see the latest headlines and click on what you want to see. We also have a new search feature where you can search and it'll automatically suggest things, and it'll automatically load what you're typing into the search bar, which is kind of useful. We also have tag pages, so you can see a story unfold over time. Those product pages, which kind of go over a product, for example, the Nexus 7, we'll have a product page that's up for it, and it has like specifications, a gallery, and I'll soon have the review. It also has the unboxing and first impressions. So that's just a quick overview of the Prime, and we actually have a link to this article in the description below, along with everything else I'm going to mention, starting out with the Apple iPhone 5. Which could potentially arrive on September 12th, according to this article, which I wrote. So there has really been a constant stream of iPhone 5 rumors for quite some time now, because it's, well, the next iPhone, and Apple's a big company. And most of the rumors kind of just went along with the fact that Apple wasn't quite finished with the iPhone 5. But things have started to change very recently, because we've been starting to see full, complete versions of the iPhone, like the whole case and everything like that, instead of just like the camera or the memory or a rumored display manufacturer. We're actually seeing the iPhone 5 itself, not necessarily working and on, but at least some like prototype version of it that could potentially look identical to what we're actually going to see. But let's take a look at the images and what they kind of show. Overall, the design, as you can see from the image here, it looks very similar to the iPhone 4S and 4, which has been the design for a while now. But one of the new things is they can see there's a metal back cover, and that'll make it stronger. It's glass right now, glass and plastic. If you drop it, it's going to shatter. Well, if you drop this, it'll probably scratch a little bit, or maybe even just not do anything because its metal is very strong. It also has a smaller docking connector, as you can see on the bottom. It's supposedly either an 8 or 19 pin, which is very, very small. And there, of course, will be an accessory where you can plug it in there and then have that full dock connector, or the 20 pin, I think that's what it is. But that dock connector will still work if you have an adapter, so you can use all your old docks, most likely. And on the bottom, you can also see on the left and right side there is our speakers, and on the other side you can see there is that headphone jack. So, and finally there's a larger display, which is just slightly taller. That's what will make it bigger. And overall, it looks very similar to the current iPhone 4, as I mentioned. There isn't any confirmation on this, but there are some pretty good sources that are reporting on this. One of those is iLab Factory, which started up the rumors on Sunday by posting images of the iPhone 5 and some parts of it. Does that make sense? It looks like they might repair iPhones, and they would probably get parts maybe a little bit early. And the other one is Mako Takara. They followed up by posting a video of this iPhone 5 prototype. So two different sources are kind of posting similar things, which kind of just point to that these could really be the iPhone 5 images. So most likely Apple's already begun producing the iPhone 5, making me wonder when it's going to arrive. And the answer to that question, multiple sources including iMore, The Verge, All Things D, they're all reporting that Apple will be holding an event on Wednesday, September 12th, where they'll have something to announce, most likely that iPhone 5 that we've been waiting for. And this makes sense to me. The iPhone 4S launched last fall. We're getting around fall of this year, so about a year ago Apple launched the iPhone 4S. Apple kind of sticks to that annual release cycle, so why not September 12th? So we'll potentially be seeing this iPhone 5 very, very shortly. So if you're looking for an iPhone right now, I'd strongly suggest just waiting a few months, see what happens. Even if you aren't going to get this iPhone 5, you can get an iPhone 4S for probably like really like $100, and maybe even an iPhone 4 for nothing. So even if you don't want the next iPhone, you can get the previous iPhones for a lower cost, which is always a good idea. Now moving on to our first sponsor, and that is Amazon and their Samsung Galaxy S3. So if you want a phone now, kind of want the iPhone, but you want something like an Android phone, the Samsung Galaxy S3 is probably a good option for you because it's one of the more high-end Android phones on the market right now. And I actually have a link, which is linked below, to an Amazon page, and they're selling the Samsung Galaxy S3 on Verizon 16GB model in the blue, which is kind of like a dark blue, black kind of color, and it's $150. I currently have the phone into review right now. It's a good, really, really fast phone. Touches on it makes it very familiar to those who have used previous Samsung smartphones, which is a good thing. I think it is. But some people might not like it. And of course, you can always probably flash custom ROM on it if you really want to. But the Samsung Galaxy S3, it's on Amazon, and it's $150, which is a pretty good deal. Because, for example, look at Verizon, they charge $200 for the same model, but Amazon's charging a little bit less. So check out the link in the description below. Moving on to Microsoft and their Surface RT and Surface tablets in general. So Microsoft this week actually announced when the Surface RT will arrive. A while back, Microsoft was strictly a software company that focused on operating systems like Windows and Windows Server and software like Office. And Microsoft has very slowly become a hardware company and a software company at the same time. They launched things like the Xbox, the Kin, and the Zune. Not all those things have been very successful. Only the Xbox really has. But Microsoft still hasn't given up on hardware because they're planning to launch the Surface, which is their own Windows Ultrabook tablet computer, and I'm really looking forward to this thing. So I'm going to start out by talking about what the Surface RT is. If you're not already familiar, the Surface RT is an ARM-powered version of the Surface, and it runs Windows RT, which is essentially like an iPad or an Android tablet, but with a Windows RT operating system, which is basically Windows 8, but without the Windows desktop. It just has that Metro Touch interface, meaning all older applications like Photoshop or Adobe Premiere, they won't work on your Surface RT until Adobe launches a specific Metro application for it. So that's just something to note. But overall, it's just a tablet. That's kind of what the Surface RT is. It's not really a full-blown computer like the Surface Pro is, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But now, when is the Surface RT going to arrive? And Microsoft is doing what makes sense when it comes to the release date of the Surface RT. They'll begin selling the Surface RT on October 26, 2012, which is the same day that Windows 8 and Windows RT will arrive. So the launch day of Windows 8 is in the same day that the Surface RT arrives. So you don't have to wait, no waiting or anything like that. Now I'm going to this is a quote from Microsoft on the release date of the Surface RT. The next version for operating system Windows 8 will be generally available on October 26, 2012. At the time, we will begin selling the Surface, a series of Microsoft-designed and manufactured hardware devices. The first sentence kind of just is simple and straightforward, but the second sentence kind of hints that there's more than just the Surface RT and Surface Pro. That Microsoft is really doing something similar to what Google's doing, and they're launching a whole series of devices. Google calls it the Nexus, and Microsoft will call it the Surface. But the Google Nexus devices are basically devices that Google makes to showcase something new. Like, for example, Galaxy Nexus showcased Android 4.0. The Nexus 7 showcased Android 4.1 Jelly Bean on a really nice 7-inch form factor. They just showcase things like Project Butter, NFC, all that kind of stuff. It comes with these Nexus devices from Google. Google doesn't really try to sell a whole lot of them. They just kind of want third parties to know what they should base their products off of, and it also gives Google something to develop off on. So Microsoft, their Surface line, seems to be a collection of devices that showcase something new. Since Microsoft only plans to sell a few million of those Surface tablets over the next year, that's a quote from Microsoft, they obviously don't want to really kill the competition, which means they kind of want to show, they really just want to show companies like Dell, HP, and Samsung what they should do. They should make tablets that are kind of like this, and that kind of makes sense. So now that we know on October 26th we'll see the Surface RT, which is a tablet and not really an ultrabook tablet. What about the Surface Pro, which is more of a full-featured computer that you could really replace your notebook or ultrabook with? Because it's Windows 8 with touchscreen, and it's also plain old ultrabook. So you might recall that Microsoft launched the Surface RT and the Surface Pro on the same event in June, and they announced at that event that they plan to launch the Surface Pro 90 days after they start shipping the Surface RT, and 90 days after October 26th puts us at January 24th, which is a few weeks after CES 2013. So who knows? Maybe Microsoft could potentially hold their own event, showcase some ultrabooks. And some of the Windows 8 tablets that were revealed at CES 2013, as well as that Surface Pro. And as you might remember, Microsoft's not going to have an event at CES this year in 2013, or next year, that's what it is. So that means they could potentially hold another event a couple weeks later where they announce a ton of new things. The Surface Pro is basically the Surface RT with an Intel processor, full copy of Windows 8, which means you get everything that Windows 7 has, along with that touch interface. And as far as cost pricing goes, the Surface RT is probably going to cost $500, while the Surface Pro is probably going to cost around $1,000. I think Microsoft's really going to price these things competitively. The tablet would be around $500, the Ultrabook would be around $1,000, which makes sense. And it would help them be more successful with their products. Moving on to Samsung and their products. As you know, Samsung releases many products, and they have Android tablets in various different sizes. They have smaller ones like the Galaxy Tab 2 7.0 and larger ones like the Galaxy Tab 10.1, and they have many in the middle like the 7.7 and 8.9. I've gotten my hands on many of the different Galaxy Tabs, and I had to say that I really like Samsung's strategy of launching different products that range in screen size from smaller to larger. And it just makes a lot of sense. And it looks like Samsung's going to continue the trend by potentially launching a larger 11.8-inch tablet later this year. Court documents relating to Apple versus Samsung, a patent case, have revealed that Samsung is working on a tablet codenamed P10, which includes 11.8-inch display at a 2560 by 1600 Retina-like resolution. Of course, this may only be a prototype, but it is could potentially be a product since it shows up on one of Samsung's product roadmaps. Let's start out by talking about what the Galaxy Tab 11.8 is. And it'll simply be a larger and improved version of the existing Galaxy Tab. It'll have a larger display, higher resolution, along with support for 4G LTE. And most likely will be powered by Samsung's latest Exynos 4 quad processor. Have a couple extra gigabytes of RAM, support Android 4.1 Jelly Bean, along with TouchWiz on top of it. When compared to the Galaxy Tab 2 Step 10.1, Samsung's current largest tablet, the 11.8, looks pretty impressive, since the Galaxy Tab 10.1 only has a 1280 by 800 resolution, 1 gig of RAM, dual-core processor, and ice cream sandwich along with TouchWiz. But who knows, maybe Samsung will also have a next-generation Galaxy Tab 10.1 planned, which is more comparable to the 11.8. Now on to why would 11.8-inch display make sense, since the 10.1-inch display is probably more than enough for a lot of people. And personally, I prefer smaller tablets like the 7-inch and Nexus 7 simply because they're small enough to be carried around and used like a phone, put in the pocket, but can also take advantage of tablet applications, as well as like the full desktop version of websites. The whole idea of having a slightly larger or slightly smaller device really makes sense to me. For example, Samsung launched the Galaxy Note last year, which I got my hands on. It has a large 5.3-inch display, and many people might not like it. Many people think it's too big, but millions of people ended up buying the phone anyways because it was a good idea. It just fit them very well. It fit their lifestyle. It fit them. It's just they like that whole idea of having a larger phone. And I think the same thing could apply to tablets, just like it does for HDTVs or computer monitors. For example, if you look at computer monitors or HDTVs, some people prefer smaller computer monitors and HDTVs. Others want the biggest they can get. But the majority of people just get like HDTVs that are 30 to 480 inches. Just like most people go with a 4-inch phone. Some people like bigger phones, some people like smaller phones, some people like bigger HDTVs, some people like smaller HDTVs. But in the end, people kind of go for the average overall. So Samsung's strategy here is simply to launch a large 11.8-inch Galaxy Tab, just to fill a gap in the market. They're making a bigger phone, or not a phone, a bigger tablet that might not be very portable, but could be a really great thing for more of a PC replacement. Apple has called this the post-PC world, and to be really truly post-PC, it has to be able to replace a PC. And it's kind of hard even to just use your both hands to type like you would on a keyboard on a 10-inch tablet. I've done it myself. It doesn't work very well. But maybe an 11.8-inch one would work just a little bit better because it's just a little bit bigger. It would also be a little bit better for movies, media, that kind of stuff, just because it's a little bigger, more like the size of a PC or smaller notebook, which was what I think Samsung's trying to do here. Maybe in the future we'd even see 13-inch tablets. 15-inch tablets, that might be a little bit too big, but who knows? Some people think a 5-inch phone's too big. Maybe some people think a 15-inch tablet's too big. But in the end, some people will probably really like the idea of having a 15-inch tablet or a 5-inch phone. So I think that really makes a lot of sense, and that kind of relates to something I might want to try in the future, and that is just kind of trying to go a week with only using post-PC devices. I primarily use my desktop computer here to do everything. I use it to browse the web, watch YouTube videos, read the news, that kind of stuff. I don't really use the tablet for much more than email and light web browsing and games. So I might want to try, maybe in a few weeks after I finish reviewing the Nexus 7, I'll probably try to use it along with like a phone, like maybe the Galaxy Nexus or something. I might try to use it as just for 1 week and just ditch the computer for a week to use the tablet and smartphone and see how far I can get. I'll probably end up hooking up a keyboard to the tablet so I can blog and things. But I think I could potentially use just a tablet and a phone as a post-PC environment. Of course, writing about this as I do it, and I'll announce it and talk about it a little bit more in detail in the coming weeks. So I'm really planning to do that just because it makes sense. I think post-PC devices are really going to be truly post-PC devices. I can see over the next few years, many people just buy iPads, not really buy new computers, and eventually just never use their computer at all, and stick to primarily these tablets and use the cloud for their data. And I think that makes a lot of sense. I want to try it out myself with more of an enthusiast point of view, because things like doing this podcast will be kind of complicated on a tablet. I might not be able to do that. Things like blogging will be a little bit harder, and it'll just be interesting. Gaming is going to be a little bit different. I can't play the latest and greatest games on Steam on the phone or tablet, but I can play some mobile games. So that's kind of interesting. Now on to when the Galaxy Tab 11.8 will arrive. And initially it was rumored that it was going to launch at Mobile World Congress in February, but that didn't happen. And we might be actually seeing this instead on August 15th at a Samsung event. But earlier it was rumored that they were going to launch the Galaxy Note 10.1, but who knows, maybe we could see this 11.8 as well. And of course I'll probably be live blogging this event if I could possibly get a live feed or something like that into a live blog from. Now on to something very interesting, and that is Google pushing the internet forward with Google Fiber in Kansas City. So internet speeds have slowly increased over the past few decades. First there was dial-up, which was basically you could load a web page just as fast as you could read the text. And then dial-up turned it into DSL, which is a little bit faster, and now we're at cable, which is just a little bit faster. And it's kind of the norm right now is 10 down, 1 up, and that's megabits per second. It works in like do 1080p video, kind of sometimes not. I kind of have a connection like that at home. It's cable, it kind of bounces up. I've gotten 30 down, 1 up, or like 3 down, nothing up. Basically, it goes up and down. And I'm overall kind of satisfied with the download speed. What I don't like is the upload speed. That really annoys me when I upload these videos, because it really just knocks down my internet connection, because it just takes forever to upload these things because they're kind of big. Then pings are kind of low as well, or kind of high, like 20 milliseconds sometimes, which makes gaming kind of hard, that kind of stuff if there's high latency. And I think that the internet really needs a new way to be accessed, and fiber optic connection is the way to go, I think. That's what we're kind of reaching. Companies like Verizon and AT&T have released services like Fios, and I think it's Uverse, I think that's what AT&T has. But they're basically their own fiber optic services, and they offer a bandwidth of up to like 450 megabits per second, somewhere around there, but that's a pretty good connection. The only problem is you have to pay a ton of money for it, and it's not available in most places. Google plans to really change everything to launching Google Fiber. We heard about it actually a few years ago. I remember when Google initially asked cities, like, which city should Google Fiber come to. I really hoped it would come to my city, but it ended up going to another city, which is Kansas City. And, right now for around $100 you can get an internet connection for 10 down, 1 up. But with Google Fiber, you're going to get around 1,000 megabits per second of symmetric bandwidth, both up and down, 1 gigabit per second, for around that same price. Actually lower if you just want the internet, and just a little bit more if you want TV included with that. I'm going to start out by talking about the Google Fiber Internet, which is personally what I'd probably get if I was getting this Google Fiber service. For $70 a month, you get 1 gigabit per second of bandwidth. That is pretty impressive. There's no bandwidth caps, no overage fees, none of that, no throttling. Google is very open about this. They support net neutrality, so of course they're not going to throttle you or anything like that. They even give you 1 terabyte of free Google Drive storage to promote your uploading and downloading as much data as you possibly can. And 1 terabyte of data you're uploading and downloading, that's a lot of data. And Google wants you to do that. If you happen to want Google Fiber in your neighborhood, or if you happen to get it in your neighborhood, but you don't want to pay Google $70 a month, there's also a free internet service, which is if you pay the $300 setup fee, they'll give you a free standard 5 down, 1 up. I think it's actually 10 down, 1 up. I think there's a typo. But you get a standard internet connection that should get the job done, and it's going to be free for up to 7 years. If you don't want to pay a $300 setup fee, you have to pay $25 per month for a minimum of 12 months. to use their free internet in order to waive the setup fee. And also on that kind of like setup fee, the standard $70 internet connection. Right now on their website it's listed as there's that $300 setup fee, but it's waived if you do it now. If you just get the connection now and stay for it for 2 years. But I don't know how this can work exactly. This was probably some fine print I had to read, but basically, it's in there. And it's kind of cheap. It might be it might be expensive for the initial installation, but over time, $70 a month for this connection is going to be really, really impressive. And as Google has said by their videos, it really will increase the value of your home, because who wouldn't want fiber in their house? Because if you're selling your house, it has fiber, you might get few people who really like the internet who would like to buy your house just simply because there's a really good connection, good cost, and everything like that. Now on to Google Fiber Television, which is the same sort of thing, but just a little bit different. It is that same 1 gigabit per second connection, but it'll include a TV package, and it's $120 a month. And it includes hundreds of fiber channels, which are HD and everything like that. And it's just, I don't really know a lot about TV, but basically you get a couple other boxes, including a Google. As we're talking about that right now, because basically Google Fiber, they really include a lot of hardware. One of those pieces of hardware is a TV box. Basically, will convert the signal into something you can put on your TV. It's a small box, and it lets you access hundreds of channels. It's essentially a modified Google TV box. It expands your Wi-Fi connection as well. It can connect to a TV using HDMI component or composite cables, and it's controlled using a Nexus 7 that you get for free with this TV package, or using a Bluetooth remote that is also included, I believe. Next up is the network box, which comes if you get that network thing, the 1 gigabit per second, $70 a month connection. I am not sure about I don't know if it comes with the free connection. I think it possibly does, but it's basically a Google wireless router called Google Network Box. It supports the 1 gigabit per second connection, ABG and Wi-Fi. It has built-in firewall, Ethernet, IPv6 support, and it also has the cloud integrated, so you can control your router from anywhere in the world as long as you have your probably your Google account to log in. Next up is the storage box, which comes with a TV bundle, and it's basically a Google NAS box. You can record up to 8 TV streams onto it at once, and it has a built-in 2 terabyte hard drive that can store up to 500 hours of HD media. So basically, that TV bundle, even though you might not need it, it comes with a lot of new features. I mean, more hardware like the Nexus 7, as well as that TV box and network box, which for just a few, like not much more, $120 versus $70 a month, you're gonna get TV, and it's gonna be a lot better of a deal there. But yeah, I really like what Google's doing here. Now, when will Google Fiber arrive? First off, it's going to arrive first in Kansas City, and if you're in Kansas City, you can reserve your area by September 9th, which requires a $10 fee. Basically, it's called rallying. You get people in your neighborhood to click sign up, and you pay $10, and it will come first to the city or the neighborhoods with most demand. Google will post the results of that pre-registration on September 10th, and they'll tell you when and where your fiber is going to come. If you're anywhere else in the United States, you probably won't be seeing fiber anytime soon. I personally don't think Google's going to do any more rolling out fiber in the United States until at least they get done with Kansas City. So I guess just stay tuned, and eventually it'll potentially come to many, many bigger cities. I kind of think this is going to be similar to what LTE is. Google's trying to bring it to as many cities as they can. Just kind of open up the internet, show companies like Verizon and AT&T, Time Warner Cable, Comcast, all those ISPs, what they should do, what they should do with the internet. Because the internet right now, if you don't realize it, but basically these cable companies have been keeping the internet same speed as it has been for many years. Like 5 years ago, the internet was probably around the same speed in your home as it is today. And that's kind of a bad thing, because the internet grows, and the cable companies probably do this simply because they want TV to be the focus of this whole thing. They don't really want you using services like Netflix and that kind of stuff. They want you to use your TV box, some movie, TV channels, that kind of stuff. I don't really watch TV. But last time I watched TV, it was kind of like that. They're just kind of there to make money, that kind of stuff. Next up is Media Temple and their domain names. They're continuing their $4 domain name all summer long. Basically, if you want a domain name, you can go to MediaTemple.net using a link in the description below. Click on the $4 domain name promotion, and you can go and register .com, .net.org, .info.biz, .media.name.co for just $4 for the first year. That's a pretty good deal, and it's also, if you want good hosting, Media Temple has good hosting. The Prime.co is currently on the Media Temple app site beta, which is rolling out very soon. And then there's going to be There's also Grid Service, which I've used in the past. Dedicated Virtual and VE servers. They're all different web hosting options. They're all very fast, and they've all hosted my website. So check out Media Temple. There's a link in the description below to check them out. And finally, on to the last story, and that is Apple and their iPhone and iPad prototypes. So Apple and Samsung, they've been fighting back and forth for many years now, and on this Monday they actually kind of held their first actual big trial where they're kind of figuring out who is going to get banned for patent infringement. We don't really have the results yet, but kind of going back and forth. And as part of this, Apple was actually required to post some of their design and their prototypes in the past. Samsung also had to do this, I believe, but basically these prototypes are very interesting. I'm not very interested in this patent lawsuit. I kind of think it's just complete crap, because simply it's kind of who invented the square screen first, simply because these phones are very similar. I just don't think half the stuff should be patented. I think it should just be open, but it looks like Apple and Samsung want to ban each other. That's going to happen, and we don't know who's going to win, but us, the consumers, are going to probably lose either way. But I guess we do get these good images of these prototypes. So in 2007, Apple revolutionized the smartphone market by unveiling the iPhone, and each year since, they've launched a brand new iPhone, replacing the previous generation iPhone. One of the more significant versions of the iPhone was the iPhone 4, which launched in 2010, and there were a ton of rumors surrounding the iPhone 4 before it arrived. Gizmodo spent a good amount of time talking about the potential next generation iPhone, which would be a lot narrower and taller than the previous iPhone. And as you can see there, the image is actually a prototype of the iPhone. And apparently Gizmodo had good sources, because that's kind of what Gizmodo was describing. And that was an iPhone 4 prototype right there. It was, more specifically, the N90 iPhone prototype. It looked like the iPhone 3GS, but with more of a flat front and back cover, and a much longer and taller, narrower body. I guess Apple liked the look of the iPod Nano, the taller sort of thing, and they thought it might look good on the iPhone as well. Another iPhone prototype revealed. Apple doesn't get all their ideas without a fair share of copying. Apple actually posted some images of an iPhone prototype ripped off of Sony designs. The prototypes are from 2006, 1 year before the iPhone first arrived, and honestly, the Sony-inspired iPhone prototype looks a lot like the iPhone 4, mixed with like something like a Nokia Lumia smartphone that's on the market today. And if you want more of these iPhone prototype images, I actually have a full gallery. It's pretty long, and you click the link to the iPhone and iPad prototypes. Click that link, and there's a gallery of the iPhone prototypes as well as the iPad prototypes they can check out, scroll through, see all these good designs. Next up is the Apple iPad, which actually, most of these prototypes actually showed that Apple actually was considering having this iPad as named an iPod, like maybe an iPad Touch 10 or something like that. I don't know what they'd call it, but it basically had the iPod logo on the back. So the iPad was launched in 2010, and the truth is that Apple actually began work on the iPad all the way back in 2004, which was before even Apple launched the iPhone. So back then, the word post-PC didn't even really exist, and these iPad prototypes back then looked kind of like iPod Classics designed, and they basically looked like iPod Classics that were large instead of a large iPod Touch like it looks like today. So basically, one of these prototypes is basically an iPad with the iPod logo. It is a 16 by 9 display. It also has a kickstand, and it would be very comparable to some Android tablets in the market today, kind of like the HTC Flyer that also had kickstand, I believe, and a 16 by 9 display. So this is kind of interesting that Apple really kind of thought of a whole lot of things before they officially launched the iPad like it is today. In the past, we've actually seen images of, actually it was on eBay, but it was an iPad with 2 docking connectors, which was kind of cool. And we've also seen images of an iPad that looked kind of like an iBook display, or basically just a notebook computer display. And it's kind of funny to imagine a person like Steve Jobs walking around with a giant iBook display and using it like a tablet computer. And that's just very, very interesting right there. So in the end, this lawsuit, the Apple versus Samsung, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But we are getting some good information out of this, like these cool prototypes covering what Apple and Samsung have been working on in the past, what they thought about before they launched their official products. But that's about it for this video. You can come back next week for our next episode of this podcast where we talk about the week in consumer electronics technology news. If you want the news as it happens, you can check out the Prime.co, their blog. And you can also subscribe to our social networks, which are the Prime.co on Twitter, the Prime.co on Facebook. We also have a Google Plus profile, which you can search and find. And of course, if you go to the Prime.co on the sidebar, there is a link to all the social network profiles. You can check them out. And so you can also subscribe to this YouTube channel, because we update. We have at least 2 videos a week. One is this podcast, another is a gaming video. I'll put the gaming video tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. And we'll also be publishing reviews of the Nexus 7 and Galaxy S3 on the same YouTube channel, as well as the blog, the Prime.co. So check that out if you want any information on any of the stories I talked about today. Expand the description below, click show more, and then click on all the links to what I talked about to get more details, to get, for example, the images that I talked about from the iPad and iPhone prototype images. So that's about it. Stay tuned for the next episode of the Prime Podcast.